Hello YouTube. On one day of the year, the main street of Bangalow is closed to traffic and everyone lines up along the side and watches the Bangalow billy cart race. And there's lots of them, there's not just one, but multiple age categories line up their billy carts on the downhill straight and race all the way to down near the local public school. And it's attracting a huge crowd. It's the first time I've had a chance to see it, and thanks to Bruce Chester for giving me the heads up. He used to organise this back when it started in the 90s, I think it was. That was after the bypass went in and the main traffic going north didn't come right through the main street of Bangalow, and this was their celebration of it. Might have a chat to someone in a sec about more of the culture involved, but for now, let's have a look at a race. And they're off. My money's on Sparrow. This is apparently a semi-final. Off they go down the road. Yeah. Looks like a close race. What fun. And we have a clear leader in a parent and child race event coming down towards the finishing line.
In first place and through the home out as well.
Of course, if the races aren't enough excitement for you, there's stalls for food, demonstrations by the local fire brigade, a couple of rides. It really is a great community event. Nick Savage, I should have known you'd be up to your neck in this.
So this is our annual billy cart derby, Bangalow, where we close the street, line it with hay bales and send the kids down the hill.
How many races in total have we got?
There's races all day, 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock.
Right.
Different categories, age groups, professional carts, homegrown, traditional. So there's a whole range. We have some celebrity races, stuff like that. So it goes from 9 to 3.
Right. I hear
We've sold about 350 tickets already.
And your son's raced already?
Riley's been up and down, yeah.
Did he win?
No, his cart's stable, not fast. So.
Oh, okay. well, we just saw a spill there a second ago,
Yeah.
but yeah, these things don't happen by themselves. So who runs this now?
So this is a Lions Club, Bangalow Lions Club event.
Right.
And we've been operating it now for about 15 years.
Yeah.
So I've been involved with the Lions Club of Bangalow for about 5 years.
Right.
A very well run club, big membership base, some members 45 years. So
Wow, and some serious professionals or ex-professionals who did a tree change.
a couple of professional administrators who are crucial to the organisation, yeah. It's a big job.
Is it getting bigger every year, this event, or is it just about the same?
This is a big turnout. I think everyone's happy to see the sun.
Yeah.
And I changed things up slightly in terms of some of our marketing, brought into the 21st century, sold some tickets online and spent some money promoting the event online, which is something we haven't done. We've always put posters up around town and we've been on radio and media, but we haven't actually spent money on Facebook, for example.
Well, I saw Channel 9 filming up there. They were interviewing someone.
NBN come,
Yep.
Paradise FM do coverage.
Right.
Bangalow Herald runs a story, all the local media, Echo, they all get involved.
And I saw the list of sponsors. Looks like you've got some serious backing.
Some really great sponsors.
Yeah.
Summerland Bank, which have just become a bank. They were previously a credit union.
That's them over there.
The
Yep.
Cornerstone, Keystone sponsor.
Yep.
Major sponsor. And then there's tiered sponsorship levels underneath.
Right.
There's 20-ish local companies that help, and most year on year, they're really happy to be a part of it.
Other than the tourist attraction, it makes money, does it?
We do, yes, it does make money. It is a community fundraiser event, and we use those funds to disseminate to the community, helping kids with uniforms, helping kids with school excursions. There are a number of rough sleepers down at the Weir, which distribute food vouchers and in that sort of fashion, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's funny. I mean, Bangalow is meant to be the richest country town in Australia, and there's still poverty.
There is still people in town, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just doing an interview, darling. What do you need? Say hello. You're on YouTube.
She's not racing, is she?
No.
No, that's fair enough. Here comes another set there now. I mean, these carts, do you have any quality control over these carts? Because some of them look That looks like a bed.
So they have to be able to brake efficiently and come to a stop.
Right.
We have to make sure the wheels aren't falling off.
Yep.
Some of them will turn over. That's a design feature.
Yep.
That one with the big smokestacks is my one.
Is your one?
That's my one.
I saw one called the Tintin Bar Torpedo up there.
Yeah, well, a lot of people get involved, and we have a schools challenge.
Ah.
So in advance, many of the schools around, we invited 25 schools, get together and kids get involved and they make a cart, then they turn up on the day.
Right.
A main feature of the day you should stay for is the parade down the street, where we get the pony club, the soccer club, the Singh family, who will dress up in beautiful Indian colours and parade and dance down the street. You'll enjoy that.
Fantastic. What an event. I mean, that's really my first time in 5 years of coming here, and it's I'll be back again.
Yeah, no, it's great. Big turnout.
Thanks for your time,
Thanks.
Nick. Okay.
Cheers, man.
Bangalow is, of course, in Byron Shire, and while this video is about Byron Shire, I've deliberately brought you somewhere else just for a moment. This farm called Eden Grove is for sale, and I came to have a quick sticky beak. Really nice farmhouse by the looks of it, and the farm itself, which I can see from the roadway, is a very creditable farm. You can see some old, definitely Hawaiian variety trees where the height's been kept in check, probably by semi-regular pruning. There's still some good growth in the interrow, plenty of nuts on the ground. The trees look well fed. The undulating sort of level ground is very good. And you'd have to say, what a nice farm. But one of the features of this area is that Eden Grove is next to another macadamia farm after that. In fact, it's surrounded by macadamia farms. And if you look on a map, the only way you can really tell the boundary is through the legal maps of the area, because it's just wall-to-wall macadamia trees from neighbour to neighbour. And it may, in fact, have been a situation where the farms were larger at one point and subdivided into smaller farms. Now, you can find that here. I'm not sure whether we're within Lismore Council or Ballina Council territory, but you can find these macadamia farming areas which have good economies of scale and good capacity to share resources, manage expectations of the locals, that sort of thing. You can find them in Lismore, in Ballina, and in Byron. But it's Byron Council that I want to focus on for this video, because we've got a problem. So I'm now taking you from Lindendale to Eureka, which is very much in the heartland of macadamia growing territory in Byron Shire. I've shown you this farm before as an example of row removal in old macadamia orchards, and you can see here that the trees are doing quite nicely with some extra breathing space in the middle where trees used to be. But as I also mentioned, it's a bit of a veneer, because this particular macadamia orchard is really just for show. From the road it still looks like a macadamia orchard, but what's happened in reality is that it's become a property development. It's got a street sign just like any other. That one's called Lacebark Lane, but if you look underneath it, it says in little words, private road. And we have a sign here saying Vista Eureka, and you've got a community living development, and we have, despite all the blurb you see here, a development of essentially 15 lots set amongst 110 hectares, and they're basically designed for luxury homes. Now, many years ago, the Northern Rivers, and I'm not sure quite the boundaries of this order, was subject to an order preventing subdivision, and the idea of that was to stop farmers at the time carving off 5 or 10 acre lots from their farms, selling them off for residential purposes so that they could make a bit of money by whittling down the farmland in the Northern Rivers. The state government at the time said, nope, you're not going to do that. This is Australia's best farming land. It needs to be preserved for farming. And so that ban on subdivision still remains, and local governments like Byron and any other shire have to comply with that. But the loophole which this is an example of, is unfortunately a way around it. So the land doesn't have to be subdivided, but community title, the best way I can describe it to you in non-legal terms is it's a little bit like strata units in a block of units. You can essentially keep the same area of land but allow multiple people to live on it. And there are some catches, and I think community title's something to be avoided if I was going to buy a property, but some people like it. The road, like this one here, has to be paid for and maintained by the residents. Services like water, electricity, that sort of stuff, these all become the responsibility of the people who buy the lots in the community title. So it's almost like strata levies. And so there's some community gardening, mowing, other sorts of upkeep, other sorts of outgoing that the owners of places on this property will be subjected to. But it's a way of getting around those development controls, and unfortunately Byron Council is the only one really guilty of it. It's dressed up particularly nicely. I mean, there'll be a lot of people here who want to get a block of land on this because there's a beautiful view out over the Nightcap Ranges. And look, I get it. It's very desirable to live here, but it's well and truly against the spirit of what the government was trying to do, which was preserving this farming land for farming in the face of climate change and all the other threats we have to food production. Now, you might look at that property as having been just an aberration or something that is a bit of a shame, without sort of thinking of the longer term implications of that. The way council approvals work is that one tends to set up a precedent for the other, so that the moment one of these community titles is approved, property developers can come in with other proposals that are similar to the one that was approved, and then use that as a leverage to get further developments of that kind approved. And then soon enough it's open slather, and the only real arguments there are about sort of what sort of level of nature you preserve with the developments. But yeah, bottom line is farming land is lost to farming and put up in small or large parcels for residential fun, hobby, stuff that won't really produce in major numbers. The macadamia industry up here in Byron Shire has been particularly vulnerable because obviously when we had our price reductions that crashed to below the cost of production in 2022, 2023, we had a real problem in that farms like this, particularly in Byron Shire, some of the oldest macadamia farms planted, were the first to make a loss. And while they're absolutely beautiful, they're still productive on one level. I mean, look at the nuts just lying on the ground here. This farm here, Loose Goose, had been on the market a few years before being sold, and no one much was willing to buy it except, unfortunately, property developers. And I've just heard via a reliable source that this one and a farm very close to it, further down towards Eureka, has now been sold, and with development applications to do community title based developments here as well. So if those rumours are true, and I really hope they're not, this macadamia orchard and all the production that it makes is going to disappear and turn into residential. And once this sort of thing happens to an area, it doesn't really go back from there. You can't take people's homes away from them later and say, oh, look, sorry, we need this land for farming. That's never happened in Australia. It's only ever gone the other way. And so if you want to protect farming land, you've actually got to stop property developers in their tracks. And unfortunately, their capacity to influence local councils is great. It's not easy to rely on people power because one vote equals one value, and one farmer having a 40-hectare farm in Eureka has one vote. Everyone else in Byron, in 40 hectares in Byron town, you'll have 20, 30, 40,000 votes. So farmers themselves don't have the people power to stop this, It really requires government, and in this case it's the state government that has the planning power, to stop these community title developments from getting up. There are other implications of allowing residential into a farming area as well, and that is that the two aren't always 100% compatible. I mean, these trees look beautiful and pretty, and I think the residents of the small number of houses across the road would love living across the road from a macadamia orchard for the most part. But as we sort of find out that the more urbanised a development gets close to a macadamia farm, the more complaints we tend to receive about farming activity. The noise from the machines is one thing, even though it's not terrible, and often complaints about spraying and people being afraid of what macadamia farmers spray on the trees, particularly if they feel that it's drifting onto their premises. Now, sometimes those complaints can be justified, and if they're justified, absolutely fair cop. Farmers aren't meant to have their spray drifting onto neighbouring properties. I suppose, though, in the incidents where it's happened, in the places like Lindendale that I showed you earlier, spray drift from one farm onto another is probably a desirable thing because it helps the neighbour. In this particular case, where it's bordering right on houses, and down that lacebark lane that I showed you, you know, those macadamia trees that are for show, I suspect will never be sprayed again, simply because the residents there won't want it. And you then sort of effectively erode away a farming industry by pressure, if you like, of residents living nearby it. Now, you might say, well, look, that's not fair. The farms were there first. Surely if they're going to come and live amongst a farming district and macadamia farms, they don't have any right to complain. And look, legally speaking, there is some justification to that. The old-fashioned law of nuisance, which is a real old gem in our common law, certainly takes into account that, you know, people coming into an area and then starting to complain about what their neighbours have done all the time won't get very far. But things like spray drift, for example, are areas where there are very strict regulations, and even the slightest possible breach can get a farmer fined a large amount of money, and even dealing with allegations of a breach can make farming unviable. It's certainly demotivating for the farmer to constantly have to deal with complaints about them doing their job. I mean, some councils are supportive. If you look at the Lismore Council, they sort of ward off complaints from people saying, don't you complain to council about noise from farming, we're on the farmer's side. And that's very supportive. Byron, unfortunately, it's another matter. So what do we do with this? What's the answer? Really, the only answer is at the state government level, and it's the Department of Planning that has to look at this trend towards community titles being developed on what legally look like large single blocks of land, but in reality are becoming housing in place of farming. Why is it important? Well, okay, I'm biased on the side of macadamia farmers. Look, even Nutkin Farm at one point had a development application approved in the 80s for 8 eco cabins on my land, and of course that's long since expired, and I don't plan to do that. But my own bias is towards food production in a climate where we know it's getting harder to grow food. At the moment, it's getting very hard to harvest food. Picking it up off the ground is challenging when it keeps raining. But we have, all these challenges, and yet a world population, spiralling up towards 50 billion people. You would have thought that food production rated a little higher than residential accommodation on farming land, which is historically a big mistake that can't be undone, long past the time when the property developers have made their money and moved on. So there's some food for discussion, guys. I don't know what you want to contribute. It's a fairly sad story, and it's one that I feel a little bit powerless to affect, but it's something where certainly if you know a local MP or you are a local MP watching this, I'd like you to consider what it is you're approving when you approve the removal of farming land for residential. It shouldn't just be a question of whether the current crop is profitable. There should be a longer term look at what should this land be used for, and take a strategic view on food security going into our future. I'm going to get off my soapbox now and do some actual farm work. See you later, guys. Catch you soon.